Продолжува отвореното студио посветено на 4 години војна во Украина. Во продолжение за состојбата токму во Украина, разговараме со новинарот Даниел Ткиее, кој се јавува од Лавов, Украина. Добро вечер, Даниел. Ајде да започнеме со првото прашање, она што значи знаеме какви се временските неприлики во Украина во текот на зимата. Како се справувате и се надминаа ли предизвиците со снабдувањето со електрична, но и со топлинска енергија?
Thanks for having me. Spring is coming finally, but this was really probably the most difficult winter for us. Since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022, Russian dictator Vladimir Putin used this winter as a weapon, has been using winter as a weapon to try to destroy our resilience and to force Ukraine to really bad compromises, unsustainable compromises. Russian air forces have been firing all types of missiles, even ballistic missiles, drones directly at energy infrastructure. We had really large problems with electricity, with water supplies. However, finally, most of our energy problems have been solved as of today. But no one knows what will come next. Tomorrow, our spring is coming, and Putin's strategy to use this winter as a weapon failed, to be honest, because he failed to convince us, he failed to force us to untenable, to impossible compromises, to impossible concessions during this negotiation.
Ја споменавте доаѓањето на пролета, а со тоа е и одржувањето на председателски избори. Од тука прашањето, кои предуслови треба да се исполнат други, освен прекин на огнот за одржување на изборите?
To be honest, we can't do elections without having security. So our position and position of our government is security first, and then we can have elections. President Zelensky said that we would need to have a ceasefire for at least 90 days, not 19, 90 days, to prepare general election, because this is a big process. Also, we will need to raise some additional money and finances to fund this process. Also, there are some big challenges. For example, how would Ukrainian soldiers vote during this general election, as they have to defend against Russian attacks? So this is impossible to do without proper ceasefire. General election can take place right after a ceasefire deal or a peace deal is reached, not before. This is the most important, probably the most important problem right now. We can have elections, but this would be possible in case of a ceasefire deal or a peace deal. But we are still far away from a proper peace deal, because the main sticking point and the most problematic, the most difficult point right now is Donbass. Russian dictator Putin is demanding Ukraine to withdraw from the whole Donbass area. Ukraine can't do this because we can't lose the strategic fortified cities, which Russia has been struggling to capture for more than 10 years. However, right now, we can also only speak about election after we signed any kind of a ceasefire deal. That's not a problem for us to organize this process, and President Zelensky is open to this.
Кои би биле главни кандидати на предстојните председателски избори и од друга страна како опозицијата гледа на актуелната власт, како се справува со војната?
So probably we will have two leading candidates. First candidate would be Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. However, he has not officially confirmed that he will run for another presidential term. However, we probably expect him to participate in the general election. And the second most competitive candidate could be General Zaluzhny, former head of the Ukrainian armed forces. Today, Zaluzhny is the Ukrainian ambassador to the United Kingdom. However, there are lots of rumors, and we also expect he could participate in these elections as well. And if Zaluzhny participates in general election, then he can win these elections. By the way, at the same time, President Zelensky still maintains good polls, good public support. So if there would not be any kind of alternative candidates with proper support from the people, then President Zelensky can win these elections. However, if General Zaluzhny decides to participate in this process, then he can win, and this would be a tough fight in the matter of polling and voter support. However, we have right now we have only one great alternative for President Zelensky. Only General Zaluzhny has any kind of chances to win because he has big, broad support from the people. Because at the beginning of this full-scale invasion, during the first months of this full-scale war, General Zaluzhny played a key role in defending Ukraine, in commanding, in managing this war, in managing troops, in directing troops to the battlefield. And even before the beginning of the full-scale war, Zaluzhny made some critical preparations for this war to defend Ukraine without letting know President Zelensky. So he has made some really critical decisions in secret from public without letting know anyone, just to be prepared for this invasion. And this decision also saved our capital and our country during the first months of the invasion. That's why he still maintains and has big public support in Ukraine.
Како гледаат граѓаните на се поверојатното брзо членување во Европската Унија?
So if we talk about the European Union, we have also strong public support for joining EU. US President Donald Trump has tried to include this possibility of Ukraine joining EU in the final peace deal, and there have been some reports about possibility of Ukraine joining EU in 2027 in case of a ceasefire deal is reached. People here support this initiative. Also, a lot of depends on the terms of the accession. Right now, there are going on really tough and important negotiations, but constructive one with European partners, and we are looking forward to join EU as soon as possible. That said, for example, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said that Ukraine cannot join EU in 2027 because it will take longer due to the main rules and other bureaucratic stuff. So it will also depend on the willingness of European leaders to accept Ukraine as soon as possible. But if we are speaking about the will of Ukrainians, we would like to join EU surely as soon as possible and on better terms, as better as possible. In the matter of trade, economy, this should be sorted out by Ukrainian diplomats and Ukrainian government.
Сега кон едно важно прашање во однос на преговорите, бидејќи повторно се реактивирани и се водат, може ли и треба ли да се остане на тие црвени линии кои што Украина ги имаше и предходно?
So if you speak about the matter of Donbas, most of Ukrainians are not ready to just, cede Donbas, surrender Donbas to Russia, because firstly, it would provide Russia with strategic initiative on the ground, and it would make for Russia, just help Russia to launch another invasion in the upcoming years from better position, because Donbas area, these positions we hold right now, they are a strategic one, and they give us leverage, important advantage on the battlefield, and that's how we managed to stop Russians, to stop Russian attacks, to deter Russians, to defend against Russian attacks, because we have this critical ground right now, which is really important for us and which helps us to have more leverage on the ground. However, President Zelensky recently outlined that we are ready for a compromise, and I assume that Ukrainians would be ready for such compromise. For example, if both sides, Ukraine and Russia, equally withdraw back 40, 50 kilometers back, and then we create so-called demilitarized zone in this area, or as we can call it, free economic zone. That's how the compromise could look like for now. And right now, the ball is in Russia's court. That's our compromise. That's our offer to create the military zone to withdraw equally. And we are still waiting for Russian side to provide us with answer. Are they ready to end this war? Taking into account this compromise or not. And now the fate of these negotiations, the outcome depends only on Putin's willingness or unwillingness to settle this war on appropriate terms, because Russians are still pushing this ultimatum to force Ukraine to withdraw all troops from the whole Donbas area, which is not possible at the moment. That said, we're ready for a compromise, and I expect Ukrainians to support, probably to support this if we have good deal. For example, both sides withdraw equally 40, 50 kilometers back, and we have demilitarized zone monitored by US Air Force, by European allies, and European coalition of civilian boots on the ground in Ukraine, ensuring peace and stability. Also, the support from people will also depend on the security guarantees by European allies. Ukrainians are ready to support such compromise, and I expect them to be ready in case if we receive strong, bold security guarantees from US side, and at least right now, European allies and American side have agreed on multi-layer plan on security guarantees for Ukraine, like in the first 24 hours, Ukrainian armed forces respond in case of Russia's attack after peace deal is reached. In next 48 hours, European coalition of willing is joining the military response to Russia. And next 72 hours, U.S. Air Force probably could join fight against Russian aggression. So this is the framework which has been agreed by Europeans, Americans, and Ukrainians. And if we can maintain this, if US and Europe can provide us with solid support, then we are ready to make such compromise. And I expect people to support this better deal on appropriate terms.
Каква е моменталната ситуација на фронтот во пресрет на новите преговори? Се чини дека се интензивираат нападите.
Situation still is not easy, it's difficult. However, I have some news to share with you and with your audience. Russian advances have been slowed down by Ukrainian forces. Right now, probably the Russians are moving to their culminating point, after which they would not be able to move forward. They're too exhausted, and we expect them to lose this ability to move forward, to attack, to conduct large-scale offensive operations in the upcoming weeks or months. They're losing too many soldiers. For example, in December last year, they lost 35,000 troops in Ukraine, dead and wounded, just for 1 month. And right now, according to recent Bloomberg calculations, Russian side is losing more soldiers in Ukraine rather than is acquiring from Russian side. So right now they lose more manpower rather than they can acquire in Russia. They lose even more soldiers they can mobilize right now, and this negative dynamic for the Kremlin has begun to be in place from probably December last year. We have been monitoring this, and we have also managed to also make this position, and also we have noticed this really bad dynamics. They are losing more soldiers than mobilizing right now, and this how this looks like. Also, Ukraine is continuing deep strike attack on Russia's military targets, and this is really another blow to Putin's war machine. They cannot sustain this. They cannot sustain this indefinitely. They're losing man, equipment, and also recently Ukraine, for example, has used the long-range weapons produced by Ukraine, Flamingo missile, to strike important Russian factory of long-range drones and missiles. The pressure is mounting against Putin's war machine.
На крајот и во однос на поддршката од западните партнери, која ја имаше од самиот почеток на руската агресија, се чувствува ли се уште таа во Украина или дали во одредени моменти можеби затаи? И минатата недела бевте вие учесник и во дел од Минхенската безбедносна конференција. Кои се заклучоците од таму?
It was a pleasure for me to cover this Munich Security Conference, and probably Ukraine was a central matter of this conference. We still feel that Europeans, Americans, and other partners around the globe still support us militarily, financially, humanitarian needs. So we still can say that support for Ukraine is still strong, bold, and enough to continue this fight. Moreover, EU has voted for this 90 billion euros economic aid package for Ukraine. We have this Plural program under which Europeans buy American weapons and then ship these weapons from US to Ukraine. Right now, Europe mostly is paying for this war, not American side. However, the support still maintains. We still need more support in the matter of air defense assets because Russians are firing too many missiles at Ukraine. They even recently have fired intermediate range ballistic missile, Oreshnik, at my city of Lviv. So usually this missile carries out nuclear warhead. However, they used conventional one, but we still can say that support for Ukraine is strong, and Europeans are ready to support Ukraine as long as possible, as long as it takes to help Ukraine to achieve better peace. That said, I have a feeling as we would have to sign any kind of deal with the Russian side due to the really big pressure from US side. So we would have to sign something, right? But the open question is what we would sign, right? And what would be the terms of this deal? The main battle is still going on the ground in Ukraine, in the air, but still another battle is going on at the negotiating table. These negotiations continue, and we are trying to do our best to have as good deal as possible with the Russian side, to have security guarantees, not to see Donbass to withdraw equally at least, and to ensure Ukraine's security, to ensure that Russia will not attack Ukraine again in the future.
Даниел, ви благодарам за овој разговор.
Thank you.
Почитувани, тоа беше Даниел Ткиее, кој се новинар од Канал 24, кој се јави од Лавов, Украина. Останете со нас, отвореното студио продолжува.